Come out of the darkness, through the trees. Make your way through the ominous and darkened streets, for I am expecting you. I invite you in, out of the shadows and the cold. The only way you may enter in is through the door of your mind. Join me, for I am waiting. Up the stairs and in the room to the right. Open wide the door of your imagination. Climb into your warm bed and settle in. Have you ever woken up from a dream that seemed so real? One young boy had such a dream happen. I call this story The Premonition. The Premonition. This is a true account of what happened. This story takes place around 1963 in Niagara Falls, Ontario. To bring you back to what was going on at this point in history, Canada recently received its newly elected Lester Pearson as Prime Minister. The Americans were heavily invested in a war in Vietnam, and Beatlemania was hitting the sound waves, and the population was about half of what it is today. School had just ended, and the summer heat was incredible. I was 13 at the time of this story. Me and several of my friends spent much of our time outside playing baseball, tennis, and games of chase. We also enjoyed riding our bikes and exploring the quarry where the cable cars were at, not to mention walking down along the bank by the Niagara River. It was a weekday and me and 6 of my friends were exploring the banks of the Niagara River. There was a pathway that we followed and started exploring around. We found this cave, and despite the many signs that held warnings, we still entered in exploring it. You see, these were man-made caves. They were drilled out years ago to help prevent the banks from caving in. They had big plates in there to help prevent landslides and rocks from falling down. While wandering through the caves, we found an area that let in just enough light and had a large enough space that would be perfect for a sleepover. After coming across this cave, we all thought about it and talked about camping there. We thought it would be tons of fun. We planned for it this coming weekend. Now, what parent is going to let their child camp out in a cave that obviously has a bunch of warning signs saying no trespassing, don't enter, unsafe? Well, we decided not to tell our parents. We instead decided to tell our parents that we were going to be staying at one another's houses in order to kind of confuse them and not really allow them to know what was going on. That night, I went to bed, and I had this really bad dream. I dreamt that we were sleeping in the caves. And in the middle of the night, while we were all sleeping, we heard a really loud sound in this cave. Someone suddenly shouted, "Come on everybody, you gotta get out of here, the cave, it's caving in! Come on guys, let's go!" Just then, I couldn't get my zipper undone on my sleeping bag. I rushed to get out of there, and just as I heard the noises caving in around me, suddenly I woke up. I woke up covered in sweat. Oh, thank God this was just a dream. Oh man, panic just erupted in my heart. I woke up at home. You see, I didn't sleep in the caves that night. My parents didn't want me to stay at anybody's house that night, so when I asked them to stay at a friend's house, they said no way. In fact, the same thing happened to Gary, but 5 of our friends went and stayed down in those caves. And after having this dream, I just had a really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. Gary lived in the house behind me, so I rushed over to go get him. "Gary, are you ready to go? We gotta go check out and see what's going on." He was just eating his cereal. He invited me to sit down, and to be honest, I wasn't really hungry. I was still recovering from that dream. I told him everything that I had dreamt about. Next thing you know, we're on his bike and we're headed down to the Niagara River. There was something about being nervous and excited at the same time. I wanted to see how our friends made out. Man, it must have been an awesome, awesome sleepover. But as we started getting further and further down the road, what I seen was lights, ambulances, police cars. My gosh, what happened? Me and Gary got closer and closer. We walked up and asked, "What happened here? What's going on? What's all the commotion?" A man stood down beside us and said,
"Listen, son, there were 5 boys that were down in that cave. There's a cave-in. One of them escaped, but 4 of them were buried alive."
Suddenly, hearing that, it was like my whole world was ending. I stumbled and sat down, and so did Gary. We were unable to stand at that point. We just sat there, not knowing what to say, feeling panic and shock and everything all at the same time. My dream just came back to me, just standing out in my mind. What if we were in that cave that night? What if the cave-in happened and we died? What about our friends? We walked back home. We told our parents everything. And about a week later, we attended the funeral for 4 of our friends. The one friend that survived, he was so shaken up and so disturbed by it all, he had to go get some help. We never heard from him again. That was the craziest dream I've ever had. And to be honest, the most frightening. Perhaps the next time you have a dream, it may be trying to tell you something. Thanks for listening. Stay scared.